guess who? United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer visits Kyiv to sign a 100-year partnership with Ukraine. Second topic, Ukrainian paratroopers captured 27 Russian soldiers in Kursk Oblast. All that and some more we talk over in a Blitz interview with Jason Kirkpatrick, Head of Communications at Razom We Stand Fund, former Vice Mayor of Arcata City, California. Good afternoon. My name is Henry Keenan. We are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant effort to deliver our truth in easy terms for the whole free world, for you, directly from Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Kyiv today to sign a wide-ranging 100-year partnership treaty covering a number of areas, including defense, energy and trade. Starmer's visit marks his second trip to the Ukrainian capital and the first since he was elected Prime Minister in July 2024.
This is not just about the here and now, it is also about an investment in our two countries for the next century, bringing together technology development, scientific advances and cultural exchanges, and harnessing the phenomenal innovation shown by Ukraine in recent years for generations to come, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
The agreement, based on 9 key pillars, aimed to strengthen maritime military cooperation between the two countries and bolster security in the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea and the Azov Sea, according to the UK government statement. It will also advance scientific, educational and technological partnerships in healthcare, agriculture, space and drones, of course. London will launch a new grain verification scheme to track grain looted by Russia in the occupied territories. The document further cements the UK as Ukraine's preferred partner in the energy sector, critical mineral strategy and green steel production. The 100-year partnership is a major step in supporting Ukraine's long-term security, ensuring they are never again vulnerable to the kind of brutality inflicted on it by Russia, and committing to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sovereign Ukraine for the next century, according to the statement. Ukrainian and UK leadership are also expected to hold talks to discuss further cooperation, primarily in the security sector. Of course, Ukraine's ambassador to London, Valery Zaluzhny, said, "We are also planning to resume the strategic partnership dialogue, which is a tool that will allow us to effectively discuss and resolve various issues of bilateral cooperation," Zaluzhny added. Starmer's visit to Ukraine comes as the UK discusses deploying an international peacekeeping force to Ukraine ahead of potential peace negotiations. Bloomberg reported on January 10th that Starmer was expected to visit Kyiv in the coming weeks to discuss the peacekeepers' potential deployment with Zelensky. US President-elect Donald Trump has also advocated for Europe to take the lead in monitoring a potential ceasefire. The Wall Street Journal reported on December 12th that Trump emphasized Europe's greater responsibility in addressing Russian aggression. To mark the signing of the partnership treaty, Starmer is expected to announce new military and economic support for Ukraine as it continues to resist Russian aggression.
This is my 7th meeting with President Zelensky. I'm here at the burns unit of one of the Kyiv hospitals, which is a grim reminder of the heavy price that Ukraine is paying here. So we must put in the necessary support. So that's what I'm discussing with President Zelensky today. We must never let up on that, and we've been leading the way. At the same time, we're signing a 100-year partnership between UK and Ukraine. This is a real statement of our intent for the long term in relation to our commitment to Ukraine.
Putin's ambition to wrench Ukraine away from its closest partners has been a monumental strategic failure. Instead, we are closer than ever, and this partnership will take that friendship to the next level, Starmer said in his statement. Well, amen to that, Prime Minister. Ukrainian paratroopers and other units captured 27 Russian service members during hostilities in Russia's Kursk Oblast, the Airborne Assault Troops press service said on January 16th.
Among them are officers, sergeants and privates from motorized rifle units, Marines, airborne troops and other units coming from various Russian regions and the occupied city of Sevastopol, the press service of Ukrainian armed forces.
Ukraine has been fighting in the southwestern Kursk Oblast since August 2024, hoping for the obvious to use its positions there as a trump card in potential negotiations with Russia. And Moscow has also ramped up its efforts to throw Ukraine out of its territory, deploying North Korean troops and reportedly retaking around half of the area initially taken by Kyiv. We call on other Russian soldiers not to resist and surrender, the Airborne Assault Troops Press Service said, promising to treat Russian prisoners of war in accordance with international humanitarian law. And only a day earlier, Ukraine's National Guard announced the capture of 23 more Russian soldiers during combat operations near Toretsk and Donetsk Oblast. Ukraine and Russia regularly hold prisoners exchanges. Yes, most recently on January 15th, when 25 Ukrainians, including Azov-style defenders, were released. However, many more Azov-style defenders still stay in Russian captivity to this very day. And Russia also regularly kills Ukrainian prisoners of war, even after confirmed release. We remember and always will remember Olenivka, where a Russian mine that was deliberately blasted and killed Ukrainian POVs that were about to be exchanged. It happened before in Olenivka, and no doubt will happen again elsewhere. Why? In easy terms, because Russians can. Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is what second in the world great army is in all its fake might and glory. Jason Kirkpatrick, head of communications at Razom We Stand Fund, former vice mayor of Carter City in California. Hello, Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Hello, thanks for having me on the show.
It's pleasure is all mine. The latest U.S. sanctions, that's what I want to talk about, on Russian shadow fleet, namely. Well, do you sincerely believe this time there is no shadow over the whole thing and it will work properly? Or it will work just like all the previous sanctions before worked? Like there are sanctions and there is money, and money wins like always. So what is different this time?
Well, there's a lot more loopholes that are being closed. We're talking about hundreds of shadow tankers and this fleet being sanctioned. We see in the past that there's a problem with these ships changing flags and so on. But I think they're going to be a lot better at catching them. Also, let's just look at the finances. So we've seen projections that Russia or the Kremlin needs about 20 billion, has been making about 20 billion a month from these fossil fuel and oil sales. And we're talking about new sanctions that might cost $1 billion or more in losses to Russia. So that's only good news from Ukraine for Ukraine.
20 billion a month, yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Sure, I would love sanctions to work in full might. But let's discuss how does it all the mayhem that affect global markets? Will the price go up or down? And what does it mean for Ukraine? We're going to discuss later on. But how does it all affect the global markets is my question this time.
Right, about global markets. This actually happens to be a really good time to be placing these additional sanctions. A lot of political leaders, Biden in the US, or will be the same with Trump, they don't want to see gas prices going up because the voters penalize politicians. We've seen this, unfortunately, we've seen this decade after decade.
Right.
When voters have to pay more every week for gas to fill up their car, they penalize politicians. And so Biden and other political leaders have not wanted to make stronger sanctions. But right now, the oil markets are relatively relaxed. So the price isn't so bad. There's enough supply. And now, strategically, from the perspective of these political leaders, now it's actually a good time to put these tough sanctions on. It really hurts Russia much more. And they won't feel, these political leaders like in the USA or Europe, they won't be feeling the impacts there in the way of raised gasoline prices. So everything's pretty good and stable right now.
I only wish for these voters, you know, to wish to pay a couple of dollars more per gallon, and then just the war is over. Let's put it that way. But Mayamo Shomayamo, it is what it is. So Russian tankers, I've heard that they can't enter Chinese ports now. Well, anymore. I mean, it's 4 days in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So 117 tankers are banned from entering Chinese ports. In India, thinking to do the same. As no one wants, of course, American sanctions to be slammed upon them. But my question is, why China is acting like that? Why would not they saying, back off, America? I know they want to, but what's holding them for not doing that? They can't? Why?
People don't want to lose millions of dollars. So if the U.S. puts
Right.
sanctions on a particular ship, right? Nobody
Right.
wants to lose millions. Doesn't matter if they're Chinese,
Sorry for
American,
asking. Right.
whoever, right? So if there's a specific sanction on a specific ship that's going into a Chinese port, but let's say that that port doesn't want to lose business, they don't want to be sanctioned, that port, whoever owns that port, whoever owns that particular ship, these things can come back to bite them. And we're talking about millions or maybe billions of dollars. So if an individual is going to be violating sanctions because their ship happens to be docking in China, whatever, that person might get on an additional sanctions list. They might own some other business that is either dealing with Russia or Iran or whoever. So these sanctions, they have worked, and it's not even just since the Russian war, whether we're talking about 2022 or 2014, but the USA has been putting sanctions on different entities, whether it's Iran, North Korea,
Right.
for decades, right?
Sure. Sure.
And since the 90s, they've been really sharpening their expertise on how to make these sanctions hurt. They've gotten better and better after the 90s into the 2000s, and they've seen that when they're really specific, when they're really targeted, they can have a real impact. So, of course, you and me and the whole project I work for here at Razom We Stand, we call for a complete, transparent embargo. We hope it happens. And we're working already on the next European round of sanctions. They're expected around the time of the 3-year anniversary,
Right. Right.
February 24th. 3-year anniversary of war. We're hoping that the European Union will make a full ban on Russian LNG and stop buying it, stop sending that blood money to Putin. That's what we want. This is a good step in the right direction, and we are calling out for more. And I know your listeners want to see more too. So let's work together and make that happen.
Well, yeah, thank you so very much for a detailed answer. I want to talk about, I would love to talk more, maybe next time when we have time. I would love to talk more about China and Chinese ports. And you say that whoever owns this port, they just don't want American sanctions to be pressing on them and to lose millions of dollars. But so much for a communist dictatorship. I mean, why for Xi Jinping just said, no, we will let Russian tankers in. But this is not happening. So dollars are winning again?
Right. Well, we can call China a communist dictatorship, but it also has a free market section, right? So
Yeah, that's free market
even
speaking, right?
Even a lot of these communist party leaders, they own private corporations. I mean, it's a strange kind of communist dictatorship that has its communist leaders owning
Exactly my
companies.
point. Right.
Yeah, but they're very nervous about Trump, right? Trump's coming in I think 4 days.
I hope.
Trump is threatening to sanction China like crazy.
Yes.
These we can call it some of them maybe Chinese oligarchs. We don't hear that word used very much about China, but some people could maybe call them initial.
Well, that's who we are.
Oligarchy.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if they see that Trump's coming and they don't want to lose billions, they don't want to lose their ships, they don't want to lose their shipping companies, I think that they're on edge there in China right now.
I hope so. So, but they will have their benefit. They will find a way to have profit, I'm sure. How can Ukraine benefit from all that is happening in terms of sanctions and oil prices?
How can you create, sorry, what?
How can Ukraine benefit from all that?
If it's possible from the sanctions?
Yes. I mean, the sanctions, from all that is happening, prices going up and down, sanctions are not working very much. So is there a way for Ukraine to benefit, looking on the global markets? Shall we start buying or selling oil maybe? Or shall we, because we're trying to push sanctions work better. That's already happening. With Razom We Stand, there are people and the effort is great. But is there maybe another way to earn money, to press more onto Putin's regime? How can we do that? I'm just speculating here, Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Well, in terms of stopping the income to Russia, we have to target their and sanction and end their exports of fossil fuels, whether it's LNG or oil. Putin has had a decades-long plan to increase the production of LNG, like his Arctic LNG 2 project, up in the Arctic, and we see it's with climate change and the polar ice caps melting, they're able to get more LNG gas out, but we have to work with Europe and USA to really stop that. If we're talking about a benefit for Ukraine specifically, what Ukraine needs to do is work on energy independence and its own energy security. So because of the geographic location, we all know, you know better than I do, that Ukraine has had to import a lot of its energy from Russia. That's not going to be happening in
No.
coming years, coming decades. And we see across the globe, on the average, clean energy is becoming cheaper, and it provides real energy security. So Ukraine doesn't want to import fossil fuels from Russia. Clearly, it doesn't have enough of its own fossil fuels to fuel itself, but with cheaper clean energy sources, there is a potential for Ukraine to make and produce lots of energy and even be a part of the green transformation that the European Union is funding avidly. So we see on average with these solar panels, they're coming at cheap prices from China, but also in Europe. On the average, when you install solar panels over years, they're generally cheaper than the fossil fuels. And Ukraine can benefit because Ukraine has a lot of sun, Ukraine has a lot of wind. The European Union has already signed up and agreed to boost its own capacity, but it can't do it fast enough.
Hmm.
So, of course, it's difficult or very difficult
is.
when there's a war raging.
It is.
But installing solar wind capacity paid by the European Union is a way that Ukraine can help create its own energy security and raise money in the way of selling some of that energy on once it's built out to the European Union.
Well, amen to that. But do you believe, Jason, that it is possible, after all, to stop Russian oil under million disguises that is flooding international markets right now? Do you think that this is possible?
It's possible to limit it. Let's not talk about black and white things, but we are limiting it.
Right, sure.
Since the war started, I wish it had happened sooner, after 2014, 2015. The West, Europe, the US should have reacted much stronger than we did. We can agree on that. But especially since the full-scale invasion, they should have been putting absolute blanket bans on importing this. I'm a communications professional. This is a part of my messaging. When I talk about why the European Union should ban imports of gas, I say clearly they are funding the atrocities that Russia is carrying out in Ukrainian soil every day.
Right.
Not only that, they're funding attacks on themselves, because there was a report released yesterday. We heard about it yesterday in the news, that Russia continues acts of potential sabotage across European soils. They've recently had caught drones flying over European military installations. There was a plot a couple of months ago to poison the water supply at a military facility in Germany.
Right.
Russia has carried out murders in Europe, in the UK, in Germany, in Berlin a few years ago. And Europe is funding not only the Russian attacks on Ukraine, which are horrendous and war crimes, but they're actually funding attacks on themselves. We see Russian interference in European elections, and Europe needs to really wake up. These European politicians need to wake up and stop funding attacks on their own soil that Russia's carrying out.
Well, that's the thing with politicians and with voters. Until this is not your blood, it's just a red liquid. So sometimes it happens like this. But you're absolutely right. And I appreciate your expertise and your time. Thank you so very much, Mr. Kirkpatrick, for this interview.
Thanks for your work, and best of wishes to you.
Thank you
care.
so very much. Well, that will be all for today. Thank you so very much for your time. We know it's precious. My name is unwavering, and we are UATV English and English-speaking Ukrainian state media, doing our best to deliver our truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. So please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters indeed, as in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Stay safe and tune in for more tomorrow. Goodbye.